All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This is a really special event, and tonight is actually the largest panel of guests that we've had. So if it goes wrong, you can blame me, but if it goes right, then thank all of our guests for being here and giving of their time. You know, these are really strange and scary times that we're all living in, and our goal tonight is really to highlight some of our amazing members of our Maccabi USA community who are doing really wonderful work in the community. And it's my pleasure to introduce our guest moderator tonight, who is Melissa Perlman. Melissa is a public relations executive. She's a business owner, she's a runner, and she is a Maccabi USA alum. She's been running since high school, where she was a two-time individual state champion. She ran cross country and track and field at Brown University. She coached at her high school alma mater for 6 years. Most recently ran a marathon in 2:49. Amazing. That's 4 minutes off of the Olympic trials qualifier for those of you who are measuring at home. And Melissa, being a 5 times Maccabi competitor, 9-time gold medal winner, 97, 2013, 2015, 2017, and 2019. And for the 21st Maccabi in 2022, she is the chair for all of our endurance sports. And she really helped me put this session together. So I'm going to stop talking now, and I'm going to let Melissa take over.
Thank you, Shane. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. This is going to be a special panel discussion of inspiring acts of selflessness. So tonight we're highlighting a few Maccabi USA alumni as well as do-gooders practicing the Jewish value of Tikkun Olam, also known as repairing the world. So giving back, volunteering your time, and doing a mitzvah is a key part of the Maccabi experience. And today we're going to meet a few individuals who have given back to their community locally, nationally, internationally, culturally, or otherwise in their own way. So our hope is that regardless of how small or complicated the effort and or act, it will inspire each of you to do something special in your own time and in your own unique way. We have an impressive lineup tonight, which includes 2 professional runners, a nonprofit that kicked off during COVID-19 and already has branches in 20+ markets across the US, a doctor who travels to do good, and a cycling event organizer who has raised over $40 million in 2020 alone. To make sure that we have enough time to highlight each, I'm going to get started. And please note that we will be opening up for questions at the end, or you can submit them via the chat on the right. So let's get started with Jordan Mann, if everyone can see him. Jordan Mann is a professional runner. He's a Brown University graduate, go Bears, and he is a current Brown RISD Hillel staffer. He's also a huge ambassador of initiatives that seek to support, explore, sorry, I just lost my talking points. Ambassador of initiatives that seek to support, explore, and celebrate Jewish students of color. He was an integral part of the Save Brown track effort at Brown University that got men's cross country and track reinstated. That happened just a month ago. I asked Jordan to join us tonight, despite not participating in Maccabi quite yet, to talk about the Save Brown track campaign that I personally worked with him on and was so impressed with his leadership. So welcome, Jordan. And I'm going to hand it off to you to tell us a little bit about Save Brown track and why it was so important for you to be a leader in that initiative.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Melissa, and I hope I'm doing well. Great to see you. As we say in my office these days, Tuesday Shalom. Basically on Brown University, 3 days after the murder of George Floyd, canceled his track team, basically. Overnight telling the athletes, or canceled his men's track team, along with a bunch of other sports, telling its men's team overnight that there was suddenly going to be no more track, no more chance to participate in the sport, no chance to transfer to another school because the deadline had already passed, and most importantly, no chance for other athletes who would want to come into the school for track and have that be their access to an Ivy League education that opportunity was completely wiped off the board. Obviously, on a personal level, this hurt. To a lot of alums, to a lot of people for whom Brown track gave a real opportunity to just find yourself and compete at a high level. Even for me, in terms of my athletic development to the point where I am now, it was incredibly important and incredibly formative. But more importantly, there are more Black athletes and athletes of color on Brown's track team than just about any sport besides football and basketball, basically every other sport combined. And for the school to do this in the wake of, for a school that was built upon with the institution of slavery, using the backs of African slaves, and now cutting off one of the few pipelines to an underprivileged university, to an underprivileged community, to a university, to achieve that Ivy League education, which is so much a symbol of the ability to have upwards mobility in our society. It really was an unconscionable decision of just a few days after the murder. So my role in this really became about making sure that our messaging was really clear. Melissa was a super important part of what I called my editorial consulting team in making this happen. But our story is really more than anything about a lesson about how much effective organizing and effective communication and effectively mobilizing a large group of people can get done against a large institution making regressive choices. For the first few days, all we heard from anyone was that it was a done deal. There was nothing to do about it. Christina Paxson had made her mind up, and there was no way any of these sports were coming back. But really, what we saw was that there was so much excitement and passion, and people really caring not just about the fact that it was their own sport, but about the future people for whom track was going to provide the opportunity for an Ivy League education. There was just so much passion for that idea, as highlighted by, and Melissa, I'll ask you to share the article that Russell Dinkins wrote, but highlighted by a Princeton alum who was completely disconnected from us, going on Medium and writing an article about how if Brown really cared about racial justice, they wouldn't be canceling their track team during a pandemic, while Black and Brown students are currently struggling with what's going on in the world, protests, civil unrest, etc. What was really exciting was taking all that energy, which was pretty unfocused. You had 1 million people on like a 600-person Brown alum Facebook group, saying, I want to do this, I want to do that, I'm doing this, and really sitting down and saying, hey, we need to focus our message together, and we need to really effectively think about how we're going to do this, such that everything that comes out of our organizing is focused on making the point that we want, which is that this is not just about a bunch of people being pissed about a track team. There's a squash team that got cut. There's an equestrian team that got cut. But we saw earlier in the year how so many of these sports are just avenues for the wealthy to funnel their kids into Ivy League institutions. Track is not that. And we really effectively and clearly communicated that message through whether it was getting pieces in op-eds, whether it was trying to write pieces for the New York Times, whether it was video, whether it was just trying to get people to retweet, famous people like Malcolm Gladwell to retweet the Russell Dinkins article, which Melissa just shared in the chat. And in the end, we managed to make this entire university reverse a decision they did it in 12 days, and we had a strong idea it was coming within 9. But especially in a time like today when social justice and really trying to lend a voice to the powerless is so important, it was incredibly empowering and exciting to really feel like through just effective organizing, finding ways for people who don't have a lot of time in the day to contribute just a little bit on a regular basis. It was exciting to see that you can actually make a difference in the face of a larger institution.
And thank you, Jordan. And so impressive that it was done in such a short period of time that the New York Times ended up writing a feature story on the Save Brown track effort and decision that was made. So I'll share that as well in the group so everyone can read that.
And also, the article does make it sound like it's a lot about all the rich people who had money who were pulling donations. But we had them taking down Twitter posts in 3 hours. So we had them taking down Twitter posts in 3 hours from them coming up. So yeah, I feel confident that our role was pretty significant from what we were hearing from the administration and what they were conveying to us. But yeah, please check out the article too.
Yeah. Thank you, Jordan. A great example again of that, people getting together and being passionate about a cause can really make a difference. So with that said, I'm going to move to Danny Goldberg and Dahlia Rappaport. Danny is a water polo alum and Dahlia is a tennis alum. And they are part of the Zoomers to Boomers program. Danny is the president and founder of it. This is a program that started during COVID-19, which is pretty impressive in itself, and has grown to hit more than 20 markets across the country. So if Danny and Dahlia, if you could tell us a little bit about Zoomers to Boomers.
Yeah, hi. So like Melissa said, I'm the founder and president of Zoomers to Boomers. So what we are as an organization is just like a large network of young people throughout the country, and then a few off in India. We have one international branch. Right, just a large group of young people who at the beginning of the pandemic realized, there is a large group of people who are at a significantly higher risk than we are, and we need to do something about that. So we deliver groceries to the elderly and immunocompromised. And yeah, I'll
Danny,
talk a little bit about the kind of the birth of it and how it got started, and then I'll hand it off to Dahlia.
And tell us what a Zoomer is.
Oh, sorry, that might be a little bit confusing. Yeah, so there's obviously like the baby boomer generation, which a lot of people call boomers. And then for people my age, we are Generation Z. So a lot of people call, 17, 18-year-olds Zoomers. So yeah, that's kind of the name. So it's basically like the younger generation to the older ones, Zoomers to Boomers.
Got it. And you guys, so it started in your house, in your bedroom, and it's in 20 markets now where you're delivering people your age. I'm not going to call you kids, but young adults your age are providing grocery delivery for the boomer generation and older who may need help. And you're providing it complimentary.
Right.
Why did you get started?
Right. So very beginning of the pandemic, when everything started to get shut down, there were 1 or 2 days where I just kind of sat in my house and I was like, there has to be something I can do to help, right? I can't just sit here and wait for it to end. And that's when I noticed my dad, who's a doctor in our local ER, he'd put on his scrubs, he'd get out, he'd go to work, really put himself out there to help others. And that's when I realized, this elderly group of people are the people who really need our help here. I'm going to do my best to help them stay at home, stay out of harm's way. So I, built a website, called a bunch of my friends. I was like, here's what we're going to do. And then, I launched it just in my local town of Santa Barbara.
Mm-hmm.
And then, once we started to get bigger, that is how Dahlia ended up hearing about it. She formed our, second branch. And then from there, we've just continued growing. So currently we're in 32 cities.
Wow.
We're about to launch our 33rd and 34th branches. We've served close to 5,000 people. We have a pretty large network of, 16 to 30-year-olds throughout the country. And we're doing our best to keep everyone safe. So I'm gonna hand this off to Dahlia. She can talk about her experience kind of growing a branch out in Colorado, how she dealt with that.
Excellent.
Yeah, so basically it's kind of the same thing. We provide free grocery delivery for the elderly and immunocompromised here in Denver. I heard about this from Danny. I was just looking around on the website and I was like, oh my gosh, I just start one of these. So I reached out to him. I was like, can I make a branch? And that's kind of how that happened. And it's been really great to be able to impact my community in a way where they can have the secure feeling of being able to get groceries, even if they aren't able to necessarily go to the grocery store. Yeah, I was really inspired. My parents are also both doctors, so I wanted to also help the community in a way where I'm physically putting myself out there and seeing the difference being made, because I think that's really important in times like these. Yeah, it's been amazing. It's been a great experience.
And Dahlia, how are you getting the word out? How are you telling boomers that they can take advantage of this service?
Yeah, so for getting the word out, it's actually been a little harder than expected, just because a lot of the boomer generation doesn't necessarily have social media or technology, but that's one of the main things. I use an app called Nextdoor, and that's kind of how we get a lot of our customers. And then I've also been handing out flyers in our neighborhood, and they kind of just say, if you know someone who would benefit from this, please send the message along. So yeah.
Got it. And then Danny, if someone's interested, if I want to start a Delray Beach chapter, how do I get started?
So if you go to our website, there's a page called Join Us, which basically allows you to sign up as a volunteer in your local city. Or if you don't have one, right, if there's no branch in your city, you can create your own. So what that'll do is you fill out a little form, you explain who you are, where you live, contact information, all of that. And from there, I personally will get in touch with them. I'll kind of walk them through it. I have a lot of documents and, like step-by-step guides. And then I'll also, get on the phone, hop on Zoom, do stuff like that. Just kind of help them launch it on their own.
Awesome. All right. So we can all start up branches wherever we are, if they don't exist, or just volunteer. Thank you, Danny and Dahlia. We're going to move on to our next panelist, who is Dr. Marc Bacall. Marc is the chair of the Maccabi USA Medical Advisory Committee, and he's the founder of the Maccabi Vision Project. Some of you may have heard of it, and it's been part of Maccabi for a number of years. And through the organization, he provides free eye screening and prescription eyeglasses to underprivileged neighborhoods throughout the world. So Marc, thanks for being here. And do you want to jump in and tell us a little bit about the Maccabi Vision Project and how it started and how it's become what it is today?
Sure. Thank you, Melissa. MVP, or the Maccabi Vision Project, was really started in the games in Chile in 2015. As physicians, we were already volunteers in Maccabi, and which is my favorite organization because of all the great things that Maccabi does on its own. And we thought, besides being physicians, besides helping our athletes in our own country and in the sports, is there something else that we can do? And each country that we visit, each country that hosts us, besides Israel, but the regional games, which usually in either South America or Europe, there's always people in need. And to be able to go out and help people is a great thing. But to be able to go out as Jewish and as Jewish Americans and help people who are not Americans, not necessarily Jewish, is really a special thing. And when you go and to go back to Tikkun Olam, it's really it's about giving back. The obligation to repairing the world, helping the poor. It's one of our Jewish obligations, even if we're poor ourselves. So we said, how can we give back? And one of the things that I do as a pediatrician is vision screening. And we're spoiled in the United States. We have really fancy equipment, and we get to do all this screening, but we don't use it to the max. When we visit these countries that have nothing, I mean, literally in Santa Barbara, outside of Santiago, it's a third world country. I mean, people are lucky if they have any water or food or whatever, and to show up and bring screening tools and be able to go and and not just check their vision, but diagnose their visual issues. And then to have donated glasses. In the first project down there, we screened 900 children. We brought teams twice a day. So the effects are not just for the people we're helping, which we're helping, hundreds and hundreds of people to get glasses for free. We're also bringing our athletes and setting an example and showing them what it's like and how privileged they are and how they can go out and do something to help those in need, which is really a special thing. And we help the communities. There's some communities when we were in, I'm jumping around, when we were in Israel in 2019, in 2017, we went to the poorest, largest Arab Israeli community, Jadidi Makar, and they were a little suspicious of us coming, Americans and Jews coming to help them. But in the end, the ripple effect is amazing. If a few of those people can now see, and we screened 1,800 kids in that, every single elementary school that's screened in that community. Last summer in Mexico City, in 2 really poor towns, in 3 days we screened 800 people, and we gave out over 500 pairs of glasses. Actually, Don Campbell, I see, is on the thing. He came with me to return because we didn't have enough glasses to give out that summer, and a company we partnered with made glasses for us. We flew back down to Mexico and gave them out. So to be able to go and help people and just make the world a better place. And I mention ripple effects because everything you do in life, and I think about this every day, and I think everybody should think about this. If you can just do one thing each day to help somebody that you normally wouldn't have gone, and you don't have to go that far out of your way to help someone. I mean, you could literally pick up a newspaper for somebody, or rake a leaf, or open a door, but little things to big things. Give somebody some food or some money, or help them out. It's any little thing you can do. You don't know how that's going to affect and how they're going to pass that downstream to the next person. And in Santiago in Chile, we went down there. We helped the people. We helped in this community that really people were living in shacks. I think some of the screens that you were showing showed some of what was going on. The government, after that, saw what we were doing. They donated $300,000 the next night and to build a school. Now, of course, we didn't believe that they were actually going to build a school, but I went down there a year later on a different trip, and I visited, and the school was done. It was completed, constructed, and there were kids playing in it and going to school there. So you don't know what little thing you're going to do is going to lead to something else. And hopefully, every time we can go somewhere and do a project, not only are we helping we're doing a good thing ourselves, which is nice. We're helping the people who we're actually giving glasses to so that they can see, which is life-changing. When you give a pair of glasses to a 70-year-old woman who's never seen her grandchildren, and then all of a sudden she starts crying, and why is she crying? Because she could see her grandchildren for the first time. It's an amazing thing. And then when you see the effects on our athletes that we bring there, and how special it is to them to either play with these people or these children or interact and learn about it. And again, the ripple effects could be with our athletes going out and doing good things for others. It could be for the people who we're helping going out and passing that on, or it could be even for larger communities or countries. Who knows? World peace, So the idea is holistic, and we really hope that it just continues. And we're looking forward to now at the Maccabi on 2022. We're already looking at sites and potentially a large Bedouin population who's in need in Israel can use our assistance, and we'll most likely be running a program somewhere in the Negev desert.
Wow, it's beautiful. And Marc, so people, when the athletes participate in Maccabi, they can get involved. Are you also running these programs in off years? So in years that we don't have the games?
Well, this was going to be one of those off years, but it's an off year, so it's really not safe to run a program this year. So we kind of point. I could certainly run these programs myself. I like to do it through Maccabi because I think it's important that Maccabi is involved. That Maccabi gets credit. That it's important for our organization, the Jewish population and the American Jews, to show that we're out there to help people in the world. So it would be very easy. I could just open up a clinic somewhere myself and raise some things, but it's important for our organization to do this. And at some point, as we expand the organization, both in this country and with events around the world, that we can continue to tie Tikkun Olam along with those events, whether it's large or small projects. It'll be very impactful.
Excellent. Well, thank you for sharing. We're going to jump to our next panelist at this time, and that is David Lynn. David is a soccer alum, and he is the co-founder of Cycle for Survival. It's a movement to beat rare cancers. Some of you may have heard about it around the country. Their high energy indoor team cycling events provide a tangible way for you to fight back, with 100% of the money going to rare cancer research and so on. So David, though those that have not heard of Cycle for Survival may not know that since you founded it in 2007, you raised over 260 million. So just wanted to give that tidbit to show how big a program can become. So tell us a little bit about it.
Absolutely. Need to take all of you together with me on a short journey. So I met this amazing woman, Jen. You see her in the picture there. We met at the Harvard Business School. We fell in love. We got married. Everything was great in the world. And then about a year after we got married, Jen started experiencing these fevers and night sweats. And we went to doctor after doctor after doctor. And finally they sat us down and they said, Jen, you have this rare type of cancer. And I remember kind of now thinking back to that moment, we were so scared, but we made a really specific decision to take those fears and to put them to the side and to do everything we could to try to be fearless and to help Jen and to try to help other cancer patients. Even during Jen's worst chemotherapy, she still had that great smile as you see in the photo. And she would always wake up for her favorite 6 a.m. indoor cycling class at Equinox. So we thought to ourselves, oh, this would be perfect for a fundraiser. It's not a triathlon or a marathon that requires months and months of training. Just about anybody could get on a stationary bike and ride. So we actually got together with a few friends and decided to try to raise a few dollars, and really happy to say that some of those friends include members of the Maccabi community. I see Ari Ackerman, Rob Olin, probably a few others on this call here. And we raised a few dollars, and it started to grow as those friends told other friends and friends of friends. And Jen and I really wanted this to be bigger than us. We wanted it to be lasting and sustainable. So we went to Memorial Sloan Kettering and we said, imagine how big this could be if you guys took it over and ran it. And Equinox became the founding partner. And so with that foundation in place, Cycle for Survival just started to grow and grow and grow. But as it was doing so, Jen was going through this battle for her health and her life it's really hard to describe. She would go through this really invasive surgery, and then afterwards, months and months of chemo, and we would say, okay, she beat the cancer. And then just 2 months later, it would come back. And she would go through it again, another major surgery, more chemotherapy, always with that smile on her face as she was riding in her indoor cycling classes. And through the course of those 7 years, she kept smiling, kept hope alive, but at the very end became so sick that the best doctors in the world said to us, I'm sorry, there's nothing more we can do. And those words, I hope nobody on this Zoom ever hears those words about a loved one. And after Jen died, I didn't know what happened with my life. I didn't know what would happen with Cycle for Survival. Would we lose the momentum? Would it die out? And something actually pretty amazing happened. People continued to ride for Jen, but they started to ride for their own Jen in their life. A brother, a sister, mom or dad, somebody that had beaten cancer or was going through treatment. And companies got together and formed teams to ride with us. So not only did it not lose momentum, Cycle for Survival actually accelerated and got bigger than ever. And fast forward to today, in this most recent season, we had almost 40,000 people riding in 17 cities across the country. And Melissa, as you said, from the beginning, we've raised over $260 million with every single penny going directly into cancer research. Now, those stats are nice, but they wouldn't mean that much if we didn't have real and tangible progress from those dollars. So proud to tell everybody about the tremendous progress on new treatments that are being made in part because of Cycle for Survival. And let me give you one example. We were talking about eye care. So many of the doctors come and speak at the events about progress and breakthroughs and such. One spoke at the events about progress on a particular type of pediatric eye cancer. It's a pretty rare cancer, but about half the kids who would get it would end up having to have their eye removed, and many of them would die from their tumor. To hear this doctor tell the crowd that he was working on research that Cycle for Survival funds added to, and he developed a new treatment technique that has a 99% cure rate. And it gets even better because he talks about how Cycle for Survival funding has helped to bring that new treatment to more than 30 countries around the world. So he talks about kids who are alive and growing up and thriving that otherwise wouldn't be without the efforts of everyone in the Cycle for Survival community. So kind of on that note, want to just wrap up with two thoughts that maybe everybody on this call can kind of take with them. The first is that reminder that I think Jen taught us to take all these fears and put them to the side and try to be fearless. In fact, I actually had stopped playing soccer because I had a fear of continuing to get injured. And it was one of my teammates who reminded me about being fearless. And I'm so glad he did, because I'm now playing on the Masters team. We had a blast in Mexico City, and I can't wait for Israel 2022. And the last thought is, if we do put those fears to the side and try to be fearless, I mean, listening to these inspiring speakers before me, you all heard it. Each and every one of us has the power within us to make a difference. So I would challenge all of you guys to, whatever you're passionate about, to go out there, put those fears to the side, and start making a difference. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, David. I'm not really sure how to follow up on that. That was a beautiful story. And just your impressive of how you grew this with just the passion of you and Jen. So thank you for sharing. I know next we were going to move to speak to Rebecca Mara, who is a Maccabi alum and a friend of mine. I don't believe she's on the line yet. She's running a little bit late. She had a dentist appointment. So I'm gonna tell her to join us when she can. And with that, let's get to some questions. We had some great panelists so far, and I'm sure there's a lot of questions to be asked of each of them: how to get involved, how to learn from, whether it's the smallest act or something that's raising millions of dollars, and how we can all take a little bit of it back home with us. So if you have any questions, please send them into the chat, and I'm going to start asking them. First off, I'm going to ask, there's been a question about in COVID-19 and this current world we're in where, we're doing Zoom webinars every night of the week, and a lot of us, may be nervous about volunteering or getting involved in projects that take us outside the house. You saw some examples like Danny that started a project just for that reason, out of his home to help others. Anyone want to share their thoughts on how this time can either help sort of spur on an idea and start something, or the fears of going outside and continuing with your effort and giving back? Panelists? Danny, how about you start? You tell us how it started, how COVID-19 and being home started.
Yeah, so I think something really important, really powerful is what David said, where, sometimes you need to put that fear on the side to be able to, help others through that. And yeah, so at the very beginning of the pandemic, I hadn't gone out of my house in 2 weeks. I was super scared. I kept hearing everything on the news. I was worried. But I realized I have an opportunity because the threat of me getting sick and me getting seriously sick is lower than that of others. So I had to kind of, take that fear inside me and just put it away and realize, even if I do get sick, there are people who need to stay safe more than I do. So that's what really caused me to, get up and start helping. Obviously it's very important, always wear a mask. I put on gloves as well, always wash your hands, to ensure you are staying safe. But I think, like David said, sometimes there's a level of fear there, and sometimes you need to understand that to be able to help others, you have to be able to work through that.
Excellent. Danny, how old are you? Do you mind me asking that?
I am 17.
Impressive. Very impressive. We had someone else ask the question of how we can donate glasses. Mark, this is a question for you. Is that something, are you taking donations of glasses, or is that an option for people?
So the skinny is we've done this project many different ways. It's different each place we go and each time we run it. Maybe eventually we'll have it standardized. We actually have a partner, a company called LCS Foundation, who donates hundreds of thousands of glasses a year, who just partnered with in Mexico, and they made us between 25 and 30 pairs of glasses. We also have used donated glasses in Mexico and in Israel. You can't use donated glasses. Israel has the same. It's not a third world country. It's the same standard of care as we have. So in Israel, we're not allowed to use donated glasses, and we're not even necessarily allowed to use our own machines. So we have to use their optometrists and we purchase glasses, but we'll certainly be raising money for donations. We can have the glasses made very inexpensively or partly donated. So very small donations can pay for glasses very easily, and we'll be able to supply them to whoever needs them.
Got it. And we'll share those links at the end, so if anyone's curious. I have a quick question for David. How, for those of us who, I run a local Maccabi fun run in my area. Other people do that in their locations. These small projects that they're trying to use as fundraisers for whatever their passion is. You mentioned that you partnered with some corporations. Tell tell us about that process of how you know, rather than just going to the local Trader Joe's and asking them for a donation or for them to sponsor, how you really had the, I guess, the faith that you could get real support from large corporations that made it really grow quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the best example to focus on would be Equinox, which is the founding partner. And this shows you kind of how little I know and why I'm super impressed with the other panelists, especially at such a young age, what great work they're doing. So when we started, my idea was, let's go to somebody in our network must know the CEO or one of the top execs at Equinox. And other people at Equinox, actually the sort of main lower level type employees said, no, don't do that. And I said, what do you mean? Don't we need their support? And they said, trust us, let's just go forward and do this. So we went forward under the sort of ask for forgiveness later instead of asking for permission. And we went and actually proved out the model during those first 2 years. And it was only after the first 2 years of success that we then went to the Equinox CEO. And he's become a good friend now. And what he's told me is that if we came to him when I wanted to at the very beginning, he would have unfortunately told us, no, we can't help you because we get ideas all the time. Mm-hmm. But by the time you came to me, you had already showed me all of this success. You had all these people who were passionate about your cause and your event that I almost couldn't say no. So to me, that was the biggest lesson, knowing the right time to go to these partners. And I think it's really after you've been able to hustle and grind and prove some initial success.
Huh. So you're saying, Danny, in like a year or something, you should go to Amazon and get them to partner with Zoomers to Boomers, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Although, and actually, he's for them, it's a unique time. It's more of a crisis period. He could probably do it much sooner than we were able to because of the environment. It sounds like he's already proven a lot of success, and my guess is that there would be a lot, whether it's Amazon or somebody else, other big corporations who would be interested in getting behind his effort. Absolutely.
Very cool. And then are you, quick question, do you know what's happening now? Are you guys delaying your cycling programs because gyms are sort of in a weird stage? They're open in some cities, states, closed in others because of the pandemic, limited resources. It's sort of on pause, or how are you guys adapting?
Yeah, so the typical Cycle for Survival season, the fundraising starts September 1st and goes through most of the events in February and March. So we were somewhat fortunate in that we finished almost every event other than the last weekend before the crisis caused us to cancel any events this past season. Now everything's up in the air. So Katie Klein is the director of Cycle for Survival, and much smarter than me, much more capable. And she's been involved since the very beginning. So she's wrestling with those issues right now. Do we have some type of virtual experience? Are we going to be able to in the future have an in-person experience with socially distant bikes? Do we have some combination of that? That's all the scenario planning that the team's doing now.
Interesting. Speaking of the pandemic and the strange times we're in, Jordan, how complicated was it trying to arrange this effort to have Brown University reinstate the men's track and field and cross country teams when everyone was off campus, everyone was home for their early summer, students were home, alumni all over the country. You can't go to the administration's office and meet with them.
Yeah, in some ways, reflecting on it now, it's not something I thought about a lot. But in some ways, I think it made it almost easier for us to all connect because there was so much energy and passion behind it. But suddenly now, you know, someone's not. I mean, I think a great example would be you, right? Like if you had been working in your office, you'd be commuting a lot more. You'd be walking around. Your meetings wouldn't be sitting at your computer in the same way that they are now. I think it helped us have a little bit more availability from people who were not, who otherwise wouldn't have been available. Like even for me, right? Like, you know, I work at the Hillel at Brown, but I'm at home. I'm not like running between, you know, different coffee shops trying to meet students in different places. And so I think that gave us a lot more connectability between people, because there was so much energy and everyone was really ready to get together and make something happen. It was just about making sure that we figured out how to effectively channel that energy, which was definitely one of the more challenging parts of what we were doing. You know, saying, hey, we have all these ideas. Everyone wants to do. This person wants to, you know, this person wants to do this. Make stat sheets. This person wants to write op-eds, and actually everyone's doing this in all these different places, but it's not cohesive. And even if there are 3 million signatures in a petition, Christina Paxton's not changing your mind because of petition. How do we really ramp up the pressure in an organized way that also feels organized to the university? And I think that was the biggest challenge. But fortunately, I think just having everyone having a little bit more availability made that a little bit easier than it otherwise would have been.
Interesting. And then next steps for the Save Brown track, you know, it was saved, but you know, it doesn't end there. It wasn't an event or project that sort of had this finale. So what happens next?
So beyond obviously the you know, making sure the track team is financially fortified, I think making sure that we keep on in the vein of the work that we were doing, as far as talking about how it's an important avenue for underprivileged and people from historically underrepresented groups to have access to an Ivy League education. And so things that are brewing now, we're obviously working on just having a greater alumni support for our Black athletes. And I know Jack Hayes, the athletic director at Brown, has spent more time meeting with our Black athletes and made it more of a commitment to spend time with the Athlete Multicultural Association, with the Student Athlete Gay Alliance, and just like have a little bit more of an understanding of what the I guess the demographic topology of the university's athletic department and who the students actually are. Because it's the idea that they would be totally blindsided by this when, you know, we're one of the few sports that has a significant number of people of color from historically underrepresented groups. The fact that they could just overlook that and suggest that it was going to be in line with the diversity and inclusion initiatives is really ridiculous, for lack of a better term. But now it's kind of about making sure this conversation with the administration still happen. And also I'm in touch with one of the students about making sure there's talk between students at other Ivy League schools. There was a lot of just excitement and passion, not just from people at Brown, as I mentioned, the Russell Dinkins article, but from athletes in other athletic departments within the Ivy League who feel like they've been overlooked or mistreated in some way, and trying to make sure that there becomes the kind of athlete of color or alliance or Black athlete alliance that can really go forward and become a voice for change within not just the way the Ivy League treats its student athletes, but what Ivy League athletics looks like and what it means and represents on the whole.
Well, thank you. I want to also take a moment to thank Sharon Lifshutz, the chair of Level 11 for Maccabi 2022. Sharon, I believe you're on. Can you take a minute to tell us what to expect, those of us that will be participating in Maccabi 2022, and what Level 11 is, and how we can get excited about getting involved then?
Sure. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Sharon Lifshutz. I am calling you all from Winooski, Vermont. Sorry, I just had to get over the host has put a spotlight on you thing. So getting my bearings. So I became involved in Maccabi USA as a manager last summer in Mexico City, and it was truly amazing. And I was able to go with a few of the basketball teams for a Love the Love project, and it really just showed me how Maccabi can advance its mission of really bringing together Jewish athletes through sport. And Love the Love also showed me around this Tikkun Olam piece that we really do have a charge as Jews to make the world a better place. And when I was approached to come and be the chair, I was able to see folks like Marc Bacall and doing these amazing, amazing projects anyway. And so to be able to leverage some of those community connections, be able to bring more people into the fold and just ensure that our athletes are being able to not just have really wonderful moments on the field, but also off the field was really compelling to me. So what to expect is exactly that, of athletes being able to come together, to be able to learn more about these amazing projects that are going on, to help strengthen their connection to their fellow athletes, but also their connections to Judaism, to Tikkun Olam, and the values that bring us all together. So I'm excited. We're open to ideas. We just want to make sure these athletes have the most well-rounded experience possible. And just listening to the folks on this call on the panel, there's amazing work that's being done. There's amazing work that we can do. And I'm thrilled to be able to help grow that in this next Maccabi.
Thank you. Thanks, Sharon, for sharing. And with that, our final panelist just jumped on. So I want to introduce everyone to Rebecca Mara. Rebecca is a professional athlete. She runs for Wazel. She's an 800-meter runner, and she went to Maccabi in 2017. That's where I had the pleasure of meeting her. And Rebecca has a great story also related to COVID-19 and during this time, of how small efforts that each of us can do every single day can make a huge difference. And so welcome. Thanks for joining us. And tell us a little bit about what happened way back in March when you were going grocery shopping.
Yeah, gosh, I don't know if everyone else feels this way, but it feels like years ago now. It's been such a long time, but yeah, the first kind of week that things started to shut down, I live in Bend, Oregon. I was headed to the grocery store after practice one day, and I ended up seeing this elderly couple waiting in a car near me. And I, saw that they were waving me down, and I approached them, and they asked if I'd be willing to buy their groceries. And keep in mind, this is like the first day that we have a case even in Oregon. And so they gave me $100 and asked to go get their groceries, and got their groceries. And yeah, that was about it. But it was crazy. It blew up into a national news story, but I think in a week in which everyone was coming to terms with things getting canceled, and this pandemic was maybe going to be in our lives for a little bit longer than we thought. Perhaps it was, I don't know, a little bit of feel good news.
Exactly. So Rebecca, so that she's not sharing the whole story, but she helped this couple out, and then her boyfriend told her she should put a tweet out about it. She put the tweet out, and then it went viral, and it was picked up by everyone. You were interviewed on CNN, MSNBC, every national news station, because it showed how someone could make that small effort and really have a huge impact. So tell us a little bit about sort of how it came from, a private moment. No one's looking. You're doing this just because you're a good person and you want to do good for someone asking for help, and then it becomes national news.
Yeah. So I've said to so many people, it felt like such a no big deal moment. Like anyone, if they were in my position, would have done it. But I also feel like it was a moment in which everyone needed to be reminded, we need to be there for each other, and we need to help each other out. And actually, when I wrote down the tweet and I sent it to Jordan, he said, you absolutely have to post it, because people need to hear that message right now. People need to be reaching out to each other and reaching out to our neighbors, and reaching out to, elderly folks in our community and our families, and making sure that everyone feels taken care of. And clearly our society has kind of done that for a lot of people now, but in the very beginning, it was really scary for people who felt like they didn't have the help they needed.
Yeah, and then any tips for everyone, what's your tip for handling that national attention? I know Danny was interviewed by Forbes. Who else do we have here? We have Jordan, who was interviewed by the New York Times. What's your tip for all these amazing individuals that may find themselves, in national news opportunities?
Yeah, I'd say if you're going to be on television, practice. It's such an odd experience, because if you're interviewed from afar, your screen on your laptop just suddenly turns blue and you're live on air, and suddenly millions of people can see your face. And that can be really daunting. And it was really daunting for me at first. And after I did it a couple times, it became easier. But practice saying what you're going to talk about, practice with, family, friends, roommates, whoever makes the most sense. And that helps a whole lot. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's one of those things that, gets easier if you have the opportunity, and, just make sure you're on message and you know what you're going to be saying.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you to our panelists for sharing your personal stories, your passion projects, your mitzvahs, as we'd say. And our goal is to get these out to the world, share them more. I'm sure that there are some people on this Zoom call that have their own stories, and we'd love to hear them too. So send a note to Shane or reply to the thank you note that you will be getting, so that we can put a spotlight on your program and get you more volunteers, get you more donors, help you get the word out, because it's pretty impressive what has been shared today. I know I'm inspired, and I hope all of you have been as well. So thank you again. If there are any questions, if you want to learn more about a program or a person that you saw or heard about here, you'll get that information or send a note. Let's keep it going, and let's keep repairing the world, as they'd say. Thanks again, everyone, and have a wonderful, beautiful night.
Thanks to our panelists. Thank you, Melissa, for moderating. And I will send out a follow-up email to everyone so you know how you can get involved with these organizations and make donations. Our next session for Maccabi USA at Home will be the Maccabi USA Sports Show, featuring Joanne Pasternak and Andrew Brandt. It's all talking about social justice and professional sports. And that will be on Tuesday, July 7th at 8 p.m. Eastern. I want to echo Melissa's sentiment that if you're involved with an organization or if you started something on your own, please feel free to send it to me, and I will make sure that we highlight it, and perhaps we'll do another one of these specific sessions. And I want to wish everybody a very safe and happy July 4th holiday weekend. And that's it. Thanks for joining us. Have a wonderful night.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Good night, all. Great stuff.